Hey guys, Paul here. Today we're continuing our discussion about objectives and key results. In this video, I wanted to really go through some of the nuances of writing effective objectives and key results. And as a reminder, this is the second video in this series. First, we started talking about an introduction. What are OKRs? So today we're talking about writing effective OKRs. And in future videos, we'll talk about measurement, aligning, and implementing this tool across your organization. So let's jump right into it. So the first concept that I want you to keep in mind is that objectives should be qualitative, ambitious, and pithy. So here's my checklist. You want your objective to describe what is really important in terms of a goal for our organization. Now, your objective should be clearly valuable for the organization. It should fit on one line, so it should be a crisp, memorable statement. You should be focused on your organization's most important goals. An objective should not be all-encompassing. You have a couple of different kinds of OKRs we talked about in the introduction. So if we're talking about a committed OKR, you want to make sure that that objective is realistic. If we're talking about an aspirational OKR, you want to make sure that that objective is ambitious enough that it will stretch your team to perform at a higher level. Now, keep in mind that one objective can take several years to accomplish. And at any one time, you'll probably have 5 objectives, but realistically, 2 or 3. I wouldn't go beyond 3 for your organization, especially when you're starting. So let's talk a little bit about some examples. Here are a few different examples of qualitative, ambitious, pithy objectives. I won't read all of them. You can check them out. For example, if I were writing a data and evaluation related objective, I might say something like, we need to accelerate our organization's ability to generate strategic insights from administrative data and third-party research. So this is pretty qualitative. It's not really specific, but it is compelling. And so then under that, we'll name the key results that allow us to actually know if we've achieved this thing or not. One of the tools that I like to use when thinking about objectives, especially, is you can use a matrix like this to prioritize them. So if you're looking at a matrix like this, you sort of draw one axis, how important is this goal? Another axis, how urgent is this goal? Drafting objectives that sit in this low urgency but high importance quadrant help you prioritize those things. So objectives and key results can be a tool to really make projects and processes important and top of mind, even if they're not urgent, but could make a really significant impact to your team. Often I like, when you're thinking about these objectives, brainstorming a bunch of different objectives and then actually thinking about the relative priority of these using a tool like this. A couple of the other tools that I like to use when thinking about prioritization, there's this question, and I think it's a really profound one from the book, The One Thing. And he suggests phrasing and asking yourself questions like this. What is the one objective that we can commit to in the next 12 months that makes everything else easier or no longer necessary? So ask yourself that question, and that will help you think about objectives that are really so important that they should be one of the 2 or 3 objectives that your team names for this year. The other tool that I like to use is the 90% rule. So if you brainstorm a whole bunch of objectives, rate them on a 1 through 10 scale, where a 1 is this thing really isn't too terribly important, to a 10 is this thing is potentially the most critical, the most important thing that we could do not only this year, but over the course of several years. And so rate things on this pretty wide scale, and really only things that are 9s or 10s should qualify as potential objectives that you're investing time in. So one trap I'll mention about objectives, and then we'll get into key results. The biggest trap that I see when folks are drafting objectives for the first time, you're tempted to create an all-encompassing objective. So if we only have 2 or 3, man, I really feel like we need to write 2 or 3 that cover every potential thing that our organization does. The thing is, objectives and key results should imply focus. So if your objective is written in a way that encompasses everything, you're just kind of skating around the task at hand. So a bad objective would be something like accelerate our ability to achieve our mission. Now, this is compelling, but it really sort of suggests focusing on everything. If we're accelerating the ability to achieve our mission, that could be almost anything that our team does. Let's contrast this with the following objective, which is an objective I'm writing in the mindset of one of my clients. So potentially they're thinking, hey, maybe we need to establish ourselves as a thought leader for early childhood education innovation in the eyes of Colorado legislators. Now, there's a lot of other things they do besides thought leadership, but they might write this objective if they see that work as a leverage point to really make all of their other work stronger or no longer necessary. So that's the thought process I want you to take when you're thinking about objectives. Now let's talk about key results. So your key results should be quantitative and time bound. Here's your checklist. So your key results should describe how are we going to achieve this objective. They should honestly try and describe some of the outcomes, the meaningful changes, more so than the activities that you need to get there, though oftentimes you'll have a little bit of both. Often they describe the impact beyond your team. So it's not just we've implemented this policy, but it's we've implemented this policy and people are actually following it, for example. Should be specific, they should be unambiguous, they should be measurable. So often really helpful to use the formula from X to Y by when writing key results. Key results should be time bound. So the win should be an actual date, like the end of Q4, December 30th. And then when combined to the key results, really describe the picture of goal achievement during your time period. So you might have a multi-year objective. Your key results should describe what do you really want to accomplish to make progress on that in the time frame you choose, like in this given year. So each key result can be a milestone. It can be a metric. You'll typically have 2 to 6 key results for each objective. So I'll share just like a few one-off examples. Again, I won't read all of these things. Maybe a programmatic key result could be something like we've updated our mandated reporter training to discuss implicit bias. Examine what qualifies as neglect by the end of Q1. Of course, this is specific to a particular program, but you get the idea. You want these things to be measurable. You want to be able to say, yes, we've done this in this time frame. So here's an exercise I want to lead us through. Let's make this OKR better. So here's an example of a not super great OKR. For a business and actually for many nonprofits, you might want to improve the customer experience, which is a great goal. And maybe this organization said, okay, well, we need to make our clients feel good when they're doing business with us. We need to motivate our employees to enhance customer service. And this is okay, but it can definitely be improved. So maybe pause this and think about ways that this thing could be made better. Okay, I'm assuming you've done that. So first, maybe we can make the objective actually more compelling, not just improve the customer experience, but provide the best customer experience in our industry or in our region. And then we can make these key results actually measurable. So we think about some metrics like response time for customer complaints. Maybe we think about some milestones like develop a system for X. And what I would even suggest to make these stronger is to put a date next to them. So I wanted to share how do you start simply and then get more advanced with writing OKRs. So in terms of scope, you can start small. Like maybe you can start with just organization wide or just with one department and then get to different layers of your organization as you get more comfortable. Often you can start simply by just starting 1 or 2 objectives at a time and then adding or increasing the maximum number of objectives you're sort of measuring at any given point. Often you start with committed OKRs and then layer on aspirational OKRs. You might start with the easier to pull kinds of key results before you layer on key results that require net new data collection. Often you start with an annual review cycle and then you can layer on more frequent review cycles. You can start with just a spreadsheet before utilizing any kind of OKR tracking system that exists out there. And you can start with simple communication and meetings and layer on additional kinds of communication. Last thing I'll share with you. So I've got an exercise for revising less than ideal objectives and key results, and I'll link this in the notes. There are a couple of examples here that illustrate a not great OKR and ask you to work on creating a better one. So that can be a good thought experiment for you. And then I encourage you to write your own. So work on writing your own OKRs. Again, I'm here for you if any of you have questions related to this, and I've got some additional videos coming up that will get into some of the nuance about really implementing these tools. So thanks again for joining me. I appreciate your time and attention, and I'll catch you soon.